Welcome to the Data Room, where we share best practices and actionable tips on being a data-driven company, or as we call it, data first. If you're a B2B revenue leader looking to scale your growth stage business, come and join in the Data Room. Welcome to the Data Room. I am Heather Quitos here with scaleMatters Head of Marketing and co-founder Dan Quirk. He's also the host of our other podcast, Go to Market Excellence. So check that out when you get a chance on Spotify and wherever else you can find your podcasts. Today we're going to talk about revenue operations. I think it's still a growing trend in the B2B world, and there are a lot of people talking about it, but I think sometimes it can be difficult to understand what it fully means. And Dan, you and I have a conversation where you relayed an interesting conversation you had with an early stage CEO that I'd love to hear more about, and our listeners would like to hear about more too. Can you share a little more about it?
Yes. First of all, Heather, thanks a lot for having me in the data room. I honestly feel like a little bit of an imposter. Scott's usually sitting in this seat, but I'll do my best. So the conversation you're referencing I had with actually a good friend of mine who happens to be the CEO and the founder of a tech company in Atlanta. And he and his partners actually bootstrapped the business to around $10 million in annual recurring revenue. Yeah, which is awesome. Good company, good folks. But anyway, we got on the subject of RevOps because I was talking to him about all these interviews that I've done over on Go to Market Excellence, which you just mentioned. And I've been talking to RevOps leaders and chief revenue officers. And so I asked my buddy, I said, when are you going to start making your first RevOps hire? When are you going to start investing? And he wasn't really familiar with the term RevOps. He'd heard about it, really didn't have an innate understanding of what it was. And so he starts asking me, so what do they actually do? Why should I hire a RevOps leader? Why should I hire a RevOps person versus other roles on my growth team? And then he said, I'm not really interested in adding headcount. What value would it bring to me as the CEO? And at first I was kind of surprised because I think we both have kind of operated in this bubble of like venture capital, sure, VC-backed SaaS companies. And we're in these Slack communities like RevGenius or WizOps or Pavilion, where people are talking about RevOps constantly on LinkedIn too. So I started talking tactically about what RevOps people do with him, with my friend, but I could tell it wasn't really resonating that much. And so then he stopped me and said, hold on, man, I don't care about revenue operations. I care about revenue growth. I care about understanding the levers I need to pull to grow revenue. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting comment. And so I asked him some more questions and tried to dig in a little bit. And then it dawned on me that there are 3 or 4 reasons why bootstrap companies don't really experience the same pain or triggers that lead venture-backed or investor-backed companies to search for RevOps. And so there's certain things that bootstrap companies don't feel, the pain points they don't feel. And a few of them are these. There's no board reporting demands necessarily because bootstrap companies, especially at that stage, at around $5-10 million, they don't have a board that they need to report to. They're probably fine with their homegrown or low-cost technology to got them to where they are, so they're not feeling like, oh, we needed someone to implement this new CRM or something. So that's maybe why they don't feel like they need RevOps. Maybe they're not hiring a bunch of salespeople that need support. Lots of times RevOps leaders or RevOps admins are the people that are training new sales heads and then our new sales reps. And the fourth thing is that maybe there's not a ton of dirty data that they need to clean up, or they're not feeling the pain of having to clean up dirty data because they don't have the board reporting demand, which was number one. So those were kind of like that's kind of like how the conversation evolved a little bit, and I just thought that was super super interesting because there's this whole movement towards RevOps, but if you're a bootstrap company, you may not feel the pull like a lot of other tech startups.
Yeah. I mean, first off, I love that you had a conversation like this with your friend. Tells you about the network that you have.
Cool. Real cool. Yeah.
I love that you got tactically into the nuances of RevOps because I don't think that's a conversation many people have, but I love it. I think you actually make a good point about like the difference between bootstrap companies versus, venture backs. If you're getting to any point of success as a bootstrap company, maybe you're already like, you're good, you feel successful. So do you even need RevOps if you're like a bootstrap company, which I guess is his question too.
Yeah. Well, you might not. I think that, if you're a bootstrap company that's crossed $1 million in ARR, you're already really successful, because 96% of companies, SaaS companies, don't even make it that far. So they've already beaten the odds, if they've crossed 1 million. So you're talking about companies that are already successful, they're already profitable, and the founders kind of have a choice to make. They can, in the case of the founder that I spoke with, that I was referencing earlier, again, they're around $10 million, so they can continue the path that they're on, limiting spend, limiting expenses, keeping their customers happy, their existing customer base, adding new customers at a modest pace, and kind of living a great life off the profits, going on vacation, working remotely, buying houses, buying maybe even a boat. But that's option one, it's kind of a lifestyle option. The other option is to try to aggressively scale the business with the goal of selling the company, kind of more of the path of swinging for the fences, hoping to create some generational wealth through their families, and also giving them the freedom to, put an end, have an end date to their current thing and pursue another venture. So
sure.
Back to your question about why do you even need RevOps? If you're going to build a lifestyle business, you probably wouldn't invest in RevOps.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, if you are trying to take the company to the next level, and you want to position your company to sell, either to maybe to take on, equity financing, or to sell to another company, it's critical that you have the data infrastructure and the people and the insights to be able to run your business and iterate and really understand the levers you need to drive growth. And that's kind of where RevOps can really be a competitive advantage.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I agree with you. I think there's just like a huge disparity when you're looking at how these companies that you're talking about that really scale, how those go-to-market leaders and those teams operate when they have like a mature revenue operations function versus companies that don't have it, or are maybe even too small to invest in it. I think there are a few things, like the companies that figure it out are able to make like confident investments, and use those reliable insights that you talked about, instead of like, figuring it out as you go along, or relying on your gut because they don't have good data, or maybe they're, able to actually iterate. And that means you need data to actually look at your strategy and then make a decision on how to change that, because you have like real-time revenue intelligence. Whereas like companies without RevOps, they're trying to find data to justify why they didn't hit their goals, really, right?
And you spend super reactive,
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's like, that all leads to being able to do things just more proactively. So whether you're like planning, or whether you're hiring more people, if that's what you want to do, that's where revenue operations comes in. Otherwise, like, the alternative is just looking at your previous performance and then just hoping that you do 10, 20% better, which, you can do that, but it, like you said, it's super reactive. I think you're totally right that you're almost putting yourself at a disadvantage. Like, you're putting yourself in that bucket of having to do those reactive measures because you don't have RevOps. So I would love to hear from you, like, when you were talking with that CEO, with your friend, did anything come up on how they're currently operating as a bootstrap company and how they're making sales and marketing decisions if they, obviously haven't invested in RevOps yet?
Yeah. Actually, he addressed this specifically. He said, the way he put it was, he said, we must be doing something right because we're growing. So the sum of all our efforts are working over the last few years, which is why they've been able to grow. But if somebody said, hey, asked a specific question about, why certain strategies or channels or people or some other investment that they made, why it's really paying off, or why something's not working, they'd have to really dig down and try to find the answer. And that'd be a one-off exercise. It'd probably take a few days. Yes, and then they probably never go back and revisit the results that they came up with when they did their analysis. And truthfully, what early stage CEO or founder has time to do like deep dive analysis? They are, selling, they're directing the product team, they're if they're involved in marketing and they're like the voice of the company, they're probably busy with that. So what CEO is going to do, spend a bunch of time doing deep cohort analysis and analyzing messaging effectiveness. You know what I mean? So
right, you got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, and so for a bootstrap company to actually transition into scale up mode, and they make the decision they want to grow and they eventually want to sell the company, it does require a change of mindset in order to make that investment in revenue operations. And that change of mindset is that we want to be able to make great decisions quickly that enable us to grow faster. And it's not enough anymore to make gut feel decisions, even though we have, it's gotten us to this point. Now it's time to know exactly where we need to put our money to get the highest return. We need to know exactly where to invest in resources, and we don't want to leave revenue on the table by underinvesting in places either. So I think that, you're right when you say it's a huge disadvantage. Whether it's a bootstrap company or any other earlier growth stage company, they're at a disadvantage without RevOps. But just hiring somebody is not going to make the difference. They actually need a mindset change that we're going to shift from gut feel guesswork to data-driven, insight-led decisions, really.
Yeah, that I like how you said that. It's like it's almost a shift in like we've done it this way this far and we've been successful. It's not like saying if you're a bootstrap company, like without RevOps, you're just automatically a failure. But if you're trying to get to the next level, like RevOps is that competitive advantage, right? And that's something you mentioned earlier. I think what would be helpful actually is if you are kind of like a bootstrap company and you're like your friend, you don't really know what RevOps is. Like what are the main responsibilities of somebody that's in revenue operations?
Yeah, it's something that whether or not they're going to hire people internally or partner with another company to help them build this, they need really, I think you need 4 main components to actually have a RevOps function that gives you a competitive advantage. The first one is you need that RevOps to establish a data framework. So modeling all the processes that your company has for turning leads into new customers. So the whole end-to-end funnel, if you will, is a process of little micro conversions, and you need to be able to determine what do we need to measure to be able to optimize every stage of this process, and then you need to put those measurement points into your CRM or your sales enablement tool or your HubSpot marketing automation tool or whatever you're using for marketing automation. So that's like the first thing is you need to actually figure out what you're going to measure and how you're going to measure it. Second thing is you need kind of like quality control for your data, if you will. Stuff doesn't leave a warehouse unless it's gone through like a QC check. I just got a package from Amazon the other day. It literally said QC check on the box. But it's almost like with your data, sales and marketing data, you need to have like daily data checks. You need to have protocols in place where you're constantly keeping the data clean. Otherwise, salespeople will enter bad data, integrations will break, and there'll be duplicate data. And so it's like a constant fight. So the data quality control is a big thing. So that's number 2. Number 3 is you need an easy way to find the data and find answers to your questions. And I don't mean having a bunch of custom reports that require an admin to pull every time. Like CEOs, revenue leaders need to be able to like sign into one place and be able to trend all the go-to-market data to find answers they need, whether it's about marketing or sales or the SDR function. So you need an easy way to visualize everything. And then lastly, you need that visualizations alone or raw data alone isn't enough. You need some way to analyze it. You need really talented analysts, business analysts to turn that raw data into insights. And I think if you're serious about, like I said before, becoming an insight-led organization as opposed to gut feel, those are 4 components that you need, and you can build it internally or you can can partner with a company who's done it many times before.
I like the 4-step framework almost. And I think those are all components that if you looked at other data room episodes that we've had with Scott, he's talked about in depth about how you build all of those things. So if any of those 4 components resonate with anybody that's listening right now, definitely check some of our previous episodes, because we definitely dive into the nitty gritty of building all of those things.
Yeah, you guys do an awesome job talking about the data infrastructure on the first 12 or so episodes of the data room. So I learned a lot from listening to those myself. And really what the whole point of establishing a data infrastructure and why RevOps needs to do that is that the ultimate value for a CEO is that for someone to show you your blind spots, to show you where the exposed areas of weakness, where there's risk, but before it's too late to course correct, you know what I mean? And also I think being more proactive, identifying opportunities where you could throw more gasoline on the fire or invest more in certain areas, and it will result in exponentially higher growth. Those things aren't always obvious, and it takes someone who really understands the data but understands the go-to-market processes as well, and can surface insights to C-level leadership that they would have a difficult time finding on their own.
I totally agree. I think people on go-to-market excellence have also noted that the real importance of RevOps is just helping your executive team, just like you said, uncover blind spot. That's so key, because I think every good leader of a company realizes they don't want to be the smartest person in the room, right? They want somebody that's on their team that can help them point out where they're just not missing something, or where they can improve a little bit better. And I think RevOps is one great way of how you can take these common challenges that kind of every company faces, of whether you're scaling, whether you're raising Series A or B, C, D, whatever it is. And so your team can avoid some of those common challenges, and then enable your team to run with it and make better decisions, right? I think
100%.
I think there's a couple things that RevOps can probably avoid and enable teams to do. Do you agree with that? And if so, what are those things that RevOps can help teams avoid and enable?
I think there's dozens of things for sure. But I think you need to tier it out into more strategical or higher order things, and things that are more tactical and lower order. Both are very important. But I'll just give you a few quick examples. So one would be RevOps helps companies, especially early stage companies, avoid misallocating dollars. So it's interesting. We did a survey of mostly Series A and Series B VCs back in 2019, 2020. And we asked them how much of their sales and marketing, how much of their portfolio companies' sales and marketing dollars are wasted on average. And I mean, we heard answers anywhere from 25% of sales and marketing dollars are completely thrown away to up to 75%. And I mean, that means that there's a whole lot of waste going on. And if you have RevOps, though, they can help you identify where your performance is solid, which people are performing well, which people are underperforming or falling behind. And so RevOps helps you avoid misallocation of dollars. And when you're an early stage company or even bootstrapped, it's super critical that you're using your dollars well. And on the flip side, it enables capital efficient growth. I'll just name drop another thing here. So Kelly Ford is a general partner at Edison Partners, and she's also on our board at scaleMatters. She said recently on LinkedIn that I think she was commenting on MailChimp, who got acquired, and MailChimp grew they were bootstrapped, and then they grew organically, and they didn't take funding. And she basically was saying that we need to start celebrating companies who grow with capital efficiency, who don't necessarily take on tons and tons of VC dollars, but who may have to make a profit early and then scale that way. And I just think that RevOps can help companies do that. They can help people help their companies scale, wasting less money, aka operating more efficiently. Yeah, so that's a big one for sure. I think also revenue operations people can help revenue leaders avoid wasting time on crunching data, cobbling reports, plumbing technology, stuff like that. Because the sales leader and a marketing leader, sales leaders are hired to coach the team, hire well, close deals, right? And marketing leaders are hired to build brand, to create great content and things like that. That doesn't have anything to do with like plumbing, marketing automation technology with the CRM or like doing Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that, trying to find data to bring to the executive leadership meeting or the board. So I think RevOps helps actually focus revenue leaders on what they're good at. And then the last thing I'll say, which I think is super critical, is for companies who eventually want to sell, RevOps helps you avoid leaving money on the table. And because one of the critical things, especially if you're trying to raise Series B financing, is you need to show that you have some level of repeatability of your sales process. And when you have the right infrastructure and you have a RevOps team that gives you the data to prove repeatability, to prove that you don't just have one big time salesperson, but you have a whole group of people who are performing well, and you have really a go-to-market engine that's functioning properly, you'll get a better valuation, and investors will see that you have a real handle on your growth levers, that that they'll have more confidence that the money they give you will pay off, their investment will pay off, because there's less risk, because you actually know where you're going to put the money, because you know the levers or where you need to invest more to grow more. So I think those are three big things. There are many others, but for sure those are.
Well, there's some big ones, right?
Yeah.
Like making sure that you're allocating your dollars correctly and using that to grow efficiently. And I think those are some key things that people are focusing on as they're growing their business. So.
Yeah, and by the way, there are more. It's shameless plug. If you want to go to scaleMatters blog, there's a blog post about what RevOps brings for bootstrap companies, and there are a whole host of things that RevOps helps people avoid and enable. So check that out if you have interest in hearing more.
Yeah, I think if you're a RevOps leader, it'll make you feel good about all the responsibilities that you and value that you bring to the table, and that allows you to have like a seat at the executive table as well too. So I like, this is an awesome conversation. Thank you for sharing that conversation you had with your friend Dan. Hopefully
it's like telephone.
Yeah, hopefully he learned a little bit more about revenue operations and is a little more clear on really how their revenue growth and revenue operations, like, they're interlinked. They're not, separate things that have to be in separate boxes anywhere. So, and like I said, if you're a growing company and if you're figuring out, if you're having this debate right now, do you want to move from that bootstrap company lifestyle business and into something a little bit more pie in the sky, let's say, whether you want to invest in RevOps, I encourage you. Request a free data maturity assessment from us at scaleMatters.com/assessment. So what that is we'll basically do an in-depth walkthrough for free of your specific needs, and then we'll recommend best practices for going forward. So please check that out, scaleMatters.com/assessment. Unless you have anything else, Dan, we'll see you on the next data room. It was great having you on.
Thanks for having me on. Love being a guest.
Awesome. Thanks.